You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since we watched pizza being made in the Noble Romans window, now guides on your nostalgic tour of Disney history, one magical film at a time. I'm Eddie Ferguson.
And I'm JB Waggoner. And on today's episode, we realize you can't reason with a man without a head as we review The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
So fasten that safety restraint and pull up on the yellow strap. It's time to open the vault.
Cue that Disney-ish sound effect. Okay, Eddie, we are finally here again at the end of another era. I would not highlight this as my favorite Disney era, the package film era. There's been a lot of these films recently that kind of felt slapped together. I think these had more story than some of the other ones, like the Saludos Amigos, etc. But yeah, we finally, 1949 was the end. I think Disney was more than ready for this decade, the 40s, to end with the war and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, this was a hard decade for Disney. Like you had mentioned with the war, not just kind of, the obvious things that go along with that, but also having to do a lot of other work. They did a lot for the U.S. government and the military doing that. And then on top of all this, this is during the period that Disney animators were striking, and he was having a lot of issues just kind of scaling the business and dealing with different employees and stuff like that. So there have been a lot of anthology films or package films, however you want to call it. We've only reviewed a few of them, Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. What we have not looked over or reviewed was there was Make Mine Music in 46, Fun and Fancy Free in 1947.
And the Beanstalk.
And Melody. The Beanstalk. And then Melody Time, which you got Johnny Appleseed out of that one, in 1948. So here in 1949, finally, we come to an end of this anthology period with The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And I have to agree with you. Probably the strongest of all of them.
So this is your list, Eddie. You curated this. Why did you skip out on all of those other movies in here?
Well, you can't. I mean, there was a lot coming out and different things like that. And my goal in curating was like, what are the main animated, like actual feature length films? And then in these other periods, we'll just do a tasting, an anthology flight, as it were. However you want to kind of think about all this.
I like that.
We'll do it with some TV specials. We'll just give it a taste of a few TV specials, not like do them all and everything. The goal here is to kind of capture the essence of Disney from the different decades. And I think we've done that. I think we've captured a good essence in all of this, especially now with Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And I think this one is the one that, you can't leave out because it still has representation today.
Yes.
In the parks. It's used quite a bit, even in, kind of sizzle reels or a look back. This is, to the best of my knowledge, out of all of the anthologies, this is the one that they later on split into two short films and then would use on a quite regular basis.
Oh, okay.
Especially Ichabod. They kind of repackaged it as The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And that got put out quite frequently as like a TV special, around Halloween or something like that, as that's where it's kind of generated its, its following.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, that definitely is more of a cult film. Obviously, when you're talking about Halloween time, it's one of the go-tos for a lot of people. Interesting because they're both kind of set in more of a fall feel. So watching both of these together can still kind of work. Obviously, with Ichabod being the reason that a lot of people would tune into it. So you can definitely sense from watching this film that these were definitely two movies that they produced separately and then kind of threw them together and made them, we got the opening piece with the narrator saying, let's look at some of the most interesting characters in all of literature. And these are the two people that they single out, which is kind of funny.
I'm glad that you touched on that because I felt like, one, they stole from us. Well, Disney just keeps stealing from us with this epic book opening idea. I mean, we were the ones that originated that idea.
2003, 2004.
For the senior class video that we made. That
was not appreciated. It was not appreciated the way it should have been.
It was not at all. We've never been appreciated as we should.
Never been appreciated in our time.
Here nor there in our. That was I don't know, a very loose, but dare I say even clever way of trying to tie these two together of like, what's one of the most famous characters in English literature? It was like The Wind in the Willows. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know if and then, well, don't forget about us over here in the colonies. We've got a couple of, and you're like, really? These are the two that you'd pick, but okay,
not Oliver Twist. No, they named off all of these really great ones. And then they're like,
Robin Hood,
The Wind
King
in the
Arthur.
Willows.
Yeah.
Mr. Toad.
Not to mention like any of the Shakespeare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, even in American literature, you're like, you don't get any Mark Twain mentioned or, any of Twain's stories. But yes, I would say the I don't know, the highlight, the thing that's kind of crazy about both of these is that they get the two like most top-notch narrators of the time that you could possibly get. With the first one, for the Adventure of Mr. Toad, they have Basil Rathbone as the narrator. He's kind of the original Sherlock Holmes. Before Benedict Cumberbatch even was born or thought of.
Or Iron Man.
He did over 14 Sherlock Holmes movies between 1939 and 1946.
Wow.
I mean, he's well known for a lot of Shakespeare. He was a really well-known actor. He has a Tony Award. He was nominated for 2 Academy Awards. Even has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So, this guy is he's got the accolades. So it's pretty incredible that, they had him do that. And then that sultry baritone of a voice that is the one and only Bing Crosby just nails it, right? Like, just makes that whole piece come to life even more so.
It felt right watching it now, even though we're not watching this around Halloween. We're watching this as we're preparing for Christmas. Christmas just days away. So it's funny listening to it and being like, Bing Crosby, I should be listening to his voice inside of White Christmas right now. That should be on the radio right now. So it felt at home, even though it wasn't the right season.
Bing Crosby's Christmas album is top, arguably maybe my favorite. It's like him and Michael Bublé we listen to quite regularly. So good. And then White Christmas and Holiday Inn we have to watch every year. Those are the Christmas movies. That's where it's at. So this is fantastic having him. I think it's fun and playful. They of course kind of lean into his talents and kind of add a little bit of not just the singing, but some fun little like scats and runs and stuff like that that he's known for and kind of make it even more fun.
So Mr. Toad, we can start there since that's the first of the films in here. I don't know that I had ever actually sat down and watched Mr. Toad before. I had seen The Legend of Sleepy Hollow on its own, but either I had only done it once before and it was I just didn't wasn't paying attention to it or because my kids were watching it. But this is my first time I'm going to actually sit and watch and pay attention and really soak it in. And I honestly had more fun with it than I thought. The most interesting piece to me, I think, for Mr. Toad is Mr. Toad he just you want to be so annoyed by him because he's just a basket case and he's doing all the wrong things all the time. But then somewhere near that last third of the film, I just started to feel for him and his situation, partially because of the court case and how it goes. He was cheated out of stuff. I think that also helps on his narrative arc. But even at the end when they come in and he flies off in his airplane, you're just that Mr. Toad. And I'm this is how he got away with it all along. All of his mischievousness has been just because he's such a likable person. I don't know what it is, Eddie, but I just he went from purely annoying to just I like this guy. I don't know why. He's just that dude. He was a lovable character, even if vaguely or more than vaguely annoying.
Well, and I think that's it. I think he's an identifiable character. We all have those things that we get carried away in. You know what I mean? Where you're just anybody else would look back on this and go, really? You know, you are two men in your mid-30s, fathers and husbands, and you have a Disney podcast.
You went there, Eddie. You went there.
We all have our things. We all have our things that we just kind of get swept up in. We have fun with. We enjoy more than the average person. So yeah, I think that's okay, And I think when you watch Mr. Toad, at the beginning, you're right. This should be annoying. This should be really, but there's something endearing about it. There's something really fun about it. Because I think it's an identifiable character trait that we all kind of share with. And you see it also in the characters that surround him. They want to be mad and frustrated with their friend, but they also love their friend. And that they kind of help draw you in as the audience member to go oh, yeah, Mr. Toad. I would be curious, do you think it works so well, you're not as annoyed with them because you're only getting, what are we getting? All of 38 minutes or so of him? Yeah. If this was a full feature length, if this went even just a full hour, do you think it would still hold up, or do you think that character trope would kind of get strained?
Yeah, I think this was the perfect amount of time to spend with him. And like you said, that we weren't so annoyed that we were just this is still going on. It's a short film. It's a short story. There's not a ton else for them to explore in it. You kind of get, he gets his comeuppance, he falls, then he's redeemed, and then it kind of sets you kind of back. Oh, he's always going to be the same person he always is, but you care for him. I think you're right that helps in this case, and I think it was the right call in one instance to go, yeah, even though it is a weird mashing up of the two stories, it is the right amount of story for his story. And we'll talk more about Ichabod and Legend of Sleepy Hollow later on. But yeah, for this one, I was you know what? That's as much as I wanted. And I'm leaving satisfied.
Yeah.
Not feeling when is this over? Can we go home? Can we go home yet? It's been a lot of those recently.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that they tried for a long time to make it something more. Disney acquired the rights, kind of went on this rights acquiring spree in the late 30s, just kind of grabbing all these different European tales. And they immediately began trying to adapt The Wind in the Willow, which is where this comes from. And they just couldn't ever crack it. They just kind of had this tight little sequence that, we see here more or less. And I think it was a smart call by, by the end of 48, after you've been working on it for 8 years and you don't know how to pull it out, it's like, yeah, let's just make this a short, or, in this case, like a part of an anthology. But I think it works. It works really well. I think I would say the same for Ichabod with The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Like, I just felt like it was like perfect timing. I didn't walk away necessarily wanting anymore. I enjoyed it, but I felt like, yes, the pacing, the timing of all this just kind of works together really well.
So that one was interesting to me because I hadn't watched the cartoon that many times, like this version of it. I had seen other iterations of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and knew it more intimately, specifically the Johnny Depp one from 1999. I believe it's 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. That movie is like every year on around Halloween, I watch that film. And it's interesting.
Tim Burton.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch the changes that they made. Well, one, they made him into a kind of scientist. He's kind of a doctor, investigator, kind of creative person instead of just the teacher. Obviously, they take it a lot more Tim Burton-esque in all of that, everything that means, with more blood and more creep and stuff. And they really drew out a really interesting story. So it's interesting to see what the source material is, this is a lot closer to it. And I kind of read some bits and pieces from it. But what's funny about it is my memory of him was just like this really nice school teacher that was just he was just a kind soul, and he was just trying to fall in love with the girl, and the bully came after him, and he ran him out of town. And he's like, not that, he's kind of a jerk. He's kind of an interesting
conniving.
He and the character of Katrina Van Tassel, like, she did not age well in this movie to me, from my old memories of it. Like, she is like pitting people against each other, and then she's sad because there's nobody that she can pit against the bully. And then he's in town. Oh, now she'll give him her like attention. But even Ichabod, in the end, he's like, he falls in love with her, but then he's also falls in love with her dad's money and all of the wealth and fortune, all the lands, and all, you see the crops that turn into money, that turn into dollar bill signs. And I'm like, you two are perfect for each other, because you both are all, like, seem kind of like awful people. And even in the end, when he gets run out and they're wondering what happened to him, one of the theories is that he found an old widow who had plenty of money, and he made her his wife or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not rooting for anybody in this story. It's kind of awful, right? This version of it.
No, you're totally right. No, I mean, Ichabod Crane is a gold digger. I mean, whether that's literal money or just he wants turkey legs. I mean, is this the invention of the Disney turkey leg? Because there's like several scenes of him just like, he hides a turkey leg up on his shelf or whatever. Like, is this where the turkey leg comes? He's just, that's all he cares about, money and food.
You know that there's something weird. The moment where it pivoted for me was when he's looking over the kids' stuff, and then these kids are acting up or something, and he goes to like punish them, and then he doesn't, because the kid's mom is a really good cook.
It's a good cook.
And so he just pats him on the head. I'm like, wait, so you're teaching us that you can buy off your teachers with good cooking. I'm confused. I'm confused here. Now I'm picking at these things, because there are some great sequences in here. The whole sequence with what am I trying to think? At the very end, the Headless Horseman. Yeah. There we go. Why did it take so long? That whole sequence with not only where he's telling the story of it, and it kind of unsettles Ichabod, and then the very ending where he's fighting. It goes on for quite a while but it's super intense. It's probably one of the scariest stories that Disney has ever made, especially that ending. So I want to give that its due. Like that was really, really great. And even to go back to Mr. Toad, like the whole them trying to get out the weasels and stuff. That sequence I really loved too. Both of these had some really interesting and intense sequences that I really really enjoyed a lot of. But yeah, that's where it kind of went back and forth with me. Like I was almost glad that he was getting run out of town. Is that bad to say? Like he's supposed to be the hero, and I'm almost like, you know what? I'm kind of glad that you get a little bit of your own comeuppance in here. A word that I use all the time that I'm using a lot in this episode.
I totally agree. I think my favorite kind of part of this story is the fact that it is set up for you to automatically dislike Brom Bones, right? Mm-hmm. The leader of the gang, kind of. You get a little bit of a Gaston feel, you know what I mean? Like from this guy.
And so you're going, Gaston, right
I don't like him, da-da-da-da. And then Ichabod, okay, lanky. He's the dork. You kind of feel bad for him, da-da-da. And then it quickly flips. It does this like, wait a second. No, like Ichabod is the Gaston. He's the guy that is, the womanizer. And then you love that Brom uses a ghost story to scare the living daylights out of Ichabod to run him out of town so he gets the girl. I just thought that was such a clever turn of story. I wonder, I've not read the source material. I wonder how close that actually is, or if that's a little bit more of a Disney, spin on it all.
From some of my reading, I didn't read the whole story, but some of the reviews that I had heard or had seen about it is that the original, he doesn't really fall in love with Katrina much at all, but he is definitely drawn to her dad's money. So that is part of the original thing. But you're right. There's like, you don't ever fully want Brom to totally win. But you do when he's at the end and he's like, I've lost. Like, I'm never going to beat this guy. He, especially near the end, as he's doing everything perfectly. But then when he twists it, and he's like, let me do this. Let me try to scare him. It totally twists it and makes it into kind of a new story near the end of it. And I had fun with that. I enjoyed it. I was not prepared. I just hadn't watched it in a long time. So I didn't know this version of it that well. I knew all of the other iterations that we've done over the many, many years since this. Because the book was written in like the early 1800s or something. So it's been around. The legend's been around for a really long time and spoofed and redone and done all over.
Didn't they even do a TV series not too long ago? Like early 2000s or something?
Yeah, I forget.
I want to say that there was some type of a TV show and all of that, but I don't know. Both of these have huge, yeah, I would say fairly significant presence in the parks.
I wanted to ask you about this, Eddie, specifically Mr. Toad, because I knew Mr. Toad more for the ride than I did the movie itself. And I went back and I skimmed through some of the story, like the plot points from like of the book and stuff. Eddie, am I wrong here that somewhere in the ride you go to hell with Mr. Toad? That's not. I was waiting for that scene in this movie and it never came. I was reading plot points online and it's not there. Where is that from? Do you know?
I have no idea.
I'm so confused.
The story of the ride is quite interesting. So let me just go on record by saying it's called Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It's only available now at Disneyland. It was also in Disney World, but it has since been replaced. I love Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It is weird, but I love it.
Weird is exactly
and it is
what
just
it is.
Kind of zany. I don't know, like I think the 2 times that I have ridden it, I laugh my head off the whole time in just like childlike glee. I love it. So the story is Disneyland is close to being opened, and they did not have a ride for that area, and they needed more rides for Fantasyland, but they didn't have time to develop the area, a ride. They had done some pretty awesome other new kind of rides and ride systems and stuff that they're developing. And that ride system was an off-the-shelf ride system, the kind of car on a rail that kind of buzzed around and everything. And so it was like, hey, we can get this little car ride thing dirt cheap. Let's just put it in and we'll figure out like what we're going to base it off of. And so like they order it, they're going, and then somebody's like, hey, we did that Wind in the Willows thing, Mr. Toad. What if we just kind of like somehow made it around Mr. Toad? And they, and you've been on it, like they literally just like cut out some not cardboard, but like plywood, paint it, some cool colors, do some different like lighting cars, packages. And you're in little car. Like there's this is not like cutting edge technology of a ride system or even show presentation. It is plywood cutout, paint, and some lights. That's it, folks. Like there's no animatronics. There's no cool projection mapping. No, this is just like bare minimum. But for whatever reason, I love it. I think it's so great. I think just the pacing and the timing of it at all. Yeah, a lot of neon. You just kind of do a little bit of black light and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think it's fantastic. A bit of a ride.
It's a trip. It's an acid trip of a ride going on that thing, but it's also a way shorter line than like Peter Pan. So sometimes you just got to ride Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because you just none of us have time for that line for Peter Pan a lot of times.
Right. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow also has quite a bit of park representation. First of all, it has its own restaurant in the Magic Kingdom in Disney World, where you can get what do they have there? They've got like it's all like glutinous stuff, so I never get to eat there. But it's like waffles and different things like that. I think maybe like a funnel cake or something like that. But it's like right there in Liberty Square, very appropriate to the time. But I think more importantly is the Headless Horseman from this short gets quite a bit of representation around the Halloween time.
Yep.
Both Oogie Boogie's Bash and Mickey's Not So Scary's Halloween Party have an actual Headless Horseman like go riding through the park.
That's cool.
And I think they even like put like a pretty massive statue of the Headless Horseman in the center of Disney's California Adventure there in Anaheim. So like during Halloween in particular, they really lean into the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Headless Horseman, all of that stuff like that. And it's pretty cool. I've gone to the one in Disney World. And so to see the Headless Horseman like galloping down Main Street, like holding his pumpkin head out there is pretty sweet. And as I watched the short today, I was immediately drawn back to that, sitting there, seeing that parade start like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of other different connections to other movies and such. So one of which is when Mr. Toad gets finally sees the motor car for the first time and he gets the car fever. They use the same when he does the swirling eyes and the sound effect of design of it's like they've used that in a lot of different films throughout Disney's time. You get some of that, I think, in the Jungle Book, maybe when there's just like that kind of sound effect and animation style is reused quite a bit throughout the very pointed Disney effect. Also, Mole and Ratty, those I was first introduced to those characters in Mickey's Christmas Carol. Many years later, that's what I knew them. I'm like, I know that they're reusing the characters from other movies, but I never knew where they came from. And we had just rewatched that recently. So I was like, oh, this is where they're from. They're from Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So, and then even inside of this movie, there's a moment where I think it's even Mr. Toad looks at everybody after they've kind of gotten the house back and they've thrown a party, and they're like, and he says, "Bless us, everyone." Just like Tiny Tim. I was just like, that's funny. That's the same thing. There's a little bit of a direct connection here. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they are both characters, both stories, I think are endearing enough that we do see them pop up used quite a bit throughout Disney history. So it makes sense. Are we ready to rate this? Are we ready to kind of put this on the scale here?
I think you need to start us off, Eddie. I think I've let off the last couple of ones. So I think it's your turn to break the ice.
Well, you're usually the negative one, right? So we just kind of want to like rip the Band-Aid, get the bad news out of the way.
Get JB out of the way.
And then I'll come in and I'll give everybody a hug. I'm teasing.
Kind of.
This is a hard one. This is a really, really hard one. I'm gonna say a 3. I'm gonna say this is entertaining. I'm gonna put this right down the middle.
Eddie, people aren't going to be happy with us because it's not going to be that exciting, because I'm also giving it a 3, entertaining. These were.
Oh, I thought you would try and pull one on me and be like,
essential.
This is essential.
No.
We watch this every year.
No. I enjoyed this. I had fun. My kids enjoyed it too. My son watched a lot of it with me. He had so much fun in the whole Toad Hall caper, trying to get it back. The funniest one, though, was when it first starts, the Ichabod. He's like in a book walking, and he was like yelling at the screen, "Hey, you with the book, look where you're going." Like there's something happening that he was just like, "Come on, stop." But no, he laughed hysterically throughout most of Mr. Toad, all the shenanigans and stuff. So I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I don't think it's like, I think we've already covered it. The stories shouldn't be any longer than they are in the versions that they are. They nailed it on the head, like getting it right in the right zone. So
I had a thought of like, okay, I could see like next year at Halloween, like I want to remember this, to come back and watch the Ichabod section, because that it's just fun. Like you want kind of fun, kind of spooky things to be able to watch during that time. And then I was like, oh, the Mr. Toad, if we ever do like a family trip out to Disneyland, like we would definitely like make sure like, okay, we're going to watch this before we go, so that way the kids understand, where the ride comes from and all of that. But yeah, entertaining. I would recommend, if you've never seen either of these, it's definitely worth your time. I mean, you could even, break them apart, watch Mr. Toad, come back later and watch the Ichabod section.
Yep.
But definitely something, if you've never seen it, this needs to be in your Disney repertoire.
Well, that's it. Now that you're filled up on a lot of Disney nostalgia, it's time for a bit of Disney news. And Eddie, it's that time again for another round of Disney Board Proxy fighting. It's heating up again.
Yay!
This time last year. Now we're back. Tell us what are we in for? What are we in for?
What everybody has been waiting for. They've just,
That's what I want for Christmas. Is on my Christmas board. Wish list.
Well, things this past week really heated up. We knew for a while that Nelson Peltz, he's been trying to get a seat on the board. He kind of started this proxy fight last year, then backed off and said, okay, you bring back dividends, I'm good to go. And then Disney, as we all know, have had a less than stellar year. And so he kind of started, shaking the pots and pans a bit, like, okay, here I come. I'm going to make another run for the proxy fight. And at first, everybody's like, oh, he's just making some noise. And then immediately he and Disney start escalating this. He takes ownership of Earl Perlmutter's shares of Disney. This is the guy that Disney bought Marvel Studios off of, and then retained as the president, quote unquote, of Disney. Iger didn't like him, so Iger fires him a year ago. And so Earl Perlmutter says, okay, I'm going to give control of my shares, not ownership, but control of my shares over to this Nelson Peltz guy that is jockeying for a board seat. So now this Nelson Peltz guy and his fund have even more sway. They've got quite a few more shares that Earl Perlmutter got when Disney purchased Marvel from him. And then, so all that's kind of going on. It's like escalating. Disney's making press releases. He's doing press releases. And it's like, whoa, this is going to, somebody's got to cool the jets. And then they just flat out go, okay, here, we're nominating 2 people to the board right now. Of course, he nominates himself. Nelson Peltz nominates himself to the board. But in an interesting turn of events that has all Disney fans that know the insides out really well, really sitting on the edge of their seats, he nominates Jay Rasulo, who used to be Bob Iger's chief financial officer. So back, he ran Disney Parks for a good half a decade. He was in charge, or actually more than that now that I think about it. But I mean, he was kind of the one that made that early 2000s, early 2010s period where the parks were just like incredible and amazing. This is the guy responsible for it, right? He's the chairman of Disney Parks during that time. They think he will be, during that time, they think he's going to be the guy to replace Bob Iger, him or another guy named Tom Staggs. And so Tom Staggs was then CFO. They have the 2 men swap roles for a while. Jay becomes the chief financial officer. Tom becomes the chairman of the parks. And they're kind of like testing these 2 men out to see whether or not they're going to become the new CEO after Iger. And then Iger pulls an Iger and keeps going, no, I'm going to stay. No, I'm going to stay, extending. And both of those guys make an exit because they're like, well, I'm not going to mess around with this if he's just going to dangle it over me and never give it to me. And that's when it ultimately ends up with Bob Chapek. So this is really interesting because people were saying, he shouldn't get a board seat. What does he know about Disney? Well, now he nominates this guy next to him, which arguably there's only, 2 other people who know Disney better than Jay Rasulo, and that would be the Tom Staggs and then Bob Iger, right? So it'll be interesting. The shareholders meeting is in March, and now like all chips are on the table. So it'll no one knows the answer, the result of this until that shareholders meeting happens and they vote. And there's a high likelihood that shareholders could say, no, actually, we do want these guys on the board.
This time last year, man, he was the White Knight coming in to save the day. And what a year makes, man.
Iger.
What a year makes for Iger, where his sway and his gravitas is at an all-time low at that now. That the time before when they were making the push, I definitely felt like, oh, Iger can hold back this fire for a little bit longer. But this feels like there's a lot more swing going the other way. But we will keep you up to date on that as it goes on. Yeah, we have been hearing about it, that Disney Plus was going to combine efforts with Hulu and make it into one app, especially now that they own all of the Hulu stock, that they're actually doing a beta testing on this right now, right?
Yeah, so the way it kind of functions is if you have a subscription to both and they're kind of linked, if you've done like the bundle or something like that, when you hop on the Disney Plus homepage and you see Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, and National Geographic, there's another one that shows up over there, and it's a Hulu icon. And when you click it, it pulls up Hulu content, but in the UI of Disney Plus. And so those online who got to be a part of the beta testing and stuff, they're like, yes, this is what we've been wanting. Like, this is like the streaming super app that is going to be hard for many other people to compete with.
So any news of when that will be coming out to everybody, or is it still kind of low, like just a few people testing it?
Well, they haven't officially purchased all of Hulu. Like, they've just kind of like made the purchase agreement. And then several independent banks are assessing how much does Disney actually need to pay Comcast. Which, interesting, this is what everybody's kind of laughing about, is it's probably going to be about the amount of money that Comcast is spending to build their third theme park in Orlando. And so funny. Disney is literally funding Universal funding a new theme park for their steepest competitor down there. But so I would guess, early next year when that all finalizes and everything, I think we'll start seeing that get pushed and see all that tied in.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what they're moving towards. I think, next year is when they also said they hope to have ESPN Plus where they want it to be by the end of 2024. So I think by this time next year, we may be seeing this kind of Disney super app where you could have, Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN, where kind of it is your, Disney new cable bundle for more or less. And it's going to be stupid expensive to have all three.
So expensive.
I mean, you're looking at around $50 a month for all of them. If not more.
We're going to need to start getting some more advertisers for this to pay for our Disney bundle, Eddie.
A part of that, Disney, so as you all are listening to this, Disney Plus's newest show, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, or that series, has started. And Disney is doing another one of those things where they are releasing it simultaneously on Disney Plus and Hulu. I think trying to, again, synchronize both of those streaming apps together. And it's getting a lot of really positive buzz.
Is it now?
I never read these books. These books, for whatever reason, I don't know if we're too old for them or what, wherever they kind of came out. Have you read them? I mean, I've saw the first movie iteration of it, but
yeah, from 2009 or whatever it was when that first went, 2010. Yeah, that's the only thing I know about it. And
for me, that was very forgettable. Like, there was nothing like.
Yep, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like, okay, not, but yeah, forgettable. But yeah, I'm hearing and reading a lot of like really positive things. People who reviewed it. So like, I think Disney is holding its breath that like, we might squeak out one hit, like one really big thing. But it is, in the streaming app. So we'll see.
Finally, to end the Disney news for today, the news that we've been waiting a long time for all of this year since the news first broke. And that is Marvel is apparently going to be moving on from Jonathan Majors. And presumably it seems like they're also moving away from Kang. Like it doesn't seem like they're going to recast him, but they're actually going to move towards a different bad guy now that his case has now gone all the point where there's actually been a conviction with it. It's a misdemeanor. It's missed 2 misdemeanors, dropped some of the other charges, but that's the Disney wants nothing to do with this. And it's sad because it just comes off of, it's just weird because it's coming off of, they just finished Loki season 2 where he's a heavy part of it, but apparently they had already finished production before the court case, before the first allegations happened, and then court case, of course. So they were up a creek. Like he's such a heavy part of that entire series that they couldn't just shelve it. Like they had spent all this time and energy building up these characters. Like, so in some ways it feels like a send off for him. Like this is it, and now he's done. He's done. They kind of ended his character in one of the other. I know that they teased in the end credit scene for the bigger fight to come, but they can change that.
Quantumania and even that. Yeah.
Luckily, they're in this thing called a multiverse that they can go any direction and we will believe it.
Well, they killed him off, I don't know, with the Ant-Man movie.
Ant-Man, yep.
And then technically he's killed off, spoiler alert there, with season 2 of Loki. So yeah, it's interesting. You know, at Loki season 1, when the man, the one who remains, what do they call him there at the end?
He who remains.
I think we reviewed it, and I even said then, like, I thought he gave just a really awesome performance, a really stellar performance. But he's still a human being. And so I was not crazy about the whole multiverse and, these different things coming across. So I don't know, maybe this also connected with what happened with the Marvels and just kind of the overall state of it all. Maybe this just kind of gives them a moment like, okay, let's take a beat,
reset,
take a deep breath. Yeah. Is there any film in, significant production right now?
They had pushed it back. They pushed it back to 2026. So they had already started making rumblings to move things around for the Kang Dynasty movies. Yeah. So this really, I don't know. I would never call this like a blessing by any means for Disney, because it's one, causing so many other ripple effects, and it's just a horrible situation that all this happened in. And but it's given them, I think, credence to be able to go, like, the fans are going to realize, yeah, you guys had things out of your control that you had to adjust for. So whatever the plans were under Chapek are kind of out the door and ready to move on to something else.
Yeah. And I mean, Marvel, as long as they don't fumble on the 10-yard line, like, they should have a huge hit next year with Deadpool 3. The previous 2 have done just stellar. This one with Deadpool 3, you're pulling, you've got Hugh Jackman coming back as the Wolverine. There are rumors that Taylor Swift is in it as a villain.
Whoa.
Yeah. There's like these, like, so if that happens, like, if she's in it, this just goes
guaranteed,
nuclear, right?
It's
like,
guaranteed $100 million just from her being in it.
So so I think, Marvel's going to take a moment, or at least they should take a breather. Deadpool 3 is going to pay the accounts for a little while.
Well, that's the only Marvel movie coming out next year too. So
yeah, it's the only one. Which is good, because I think I think it was like Nerdstalgic or kind of one of those type of YouTubers was talking about, maybe even Screen Crush, that was like, the problem that happened with Marvel is, and we've talked a lot about it in a lot of the films we've reviewed, it's about characters. Like, if you don't care about the characters, and so much of the movies over the past several years, really since Infinity War, you've stopped caring about characters. It's just about huge plot moments. Like, how can we just up the ante? Huge plot moment, huge. And you just don't even care about it. And I would say also, like, one of the things you and I particularly have enjoyed is how Marvel has made each individual project kind of a genre unto itself, with the heist films in Ant-Man, or all the different kind of styles. And they haven't done that. The latest films have just kind of been generic superhero films. So hopefully they get back to the things that we really fell in love with Marvel and to begin with, which is great characters, really unique individual stories that kind of like, ooh, at the end all connect together. So,
yep.
Well, there you have it. But before we go, JB, I hope you and the family have a wonderful week. You've got a Christmas coming up. Have you bought all your presents? You good to go?
Everything's bought under the tree or ready to be shoved into stockings. But an early gift for us is that my youngest is now crawling everywhere. She's not fully taking advantage of it all the time, but when she's got something she really, really wants, she doesn't like crawl. She more like wiggles kind of and ends up in the spot. She doesn't really know how to use her feet yet to project her forward, but she's getting really good at the grab and like pull, especially if she gets near the carpet and she can just like pull herself different places. So randomly we'll be walking around and all of a sudden like, oh, we put her in the living room and now she is in the kitchen.
Where is she?
Here to get mama most of the time. So we are starting to have to plan out, okay, we've got a cable box over here. We've got a outlet here. We've got, where should we start looking to put gates up and stuff? Have a little bit of time, but so that's kind of fun now is this new stage we're in with her.
You said presents are under the tree. Have they remained under the tree?
They're behind our couch, just in the weird way
Okay.
our living room goes. Like we've got the tree goes kind of behind the couch, then couch, then TV. And so most her play area is out in front and between the TV and the couch. So there's she has not even discovered that you can get back to the tree yet. So I'm sure next year, 1,000% she will be all up in the tree and stuff. But this year we're safe. We're okay.
We have a 2-year-old, so we're constantly reapplying the ornaments to the tree.
Do you do the thing where you have to put the ornaments up to like the second and third level and the bottom is just like ornamentless?
No, we don't go that. So there's definitely categories of ornaments. You know, those that like mean the most and have significance go up higher, or they're fragile, They go up higher. And then we kind of have the crafted, quote unquote, ornaments and different things like that. Where it's like, okay, we're just going to fill out the bottom here.
That's funny.
So we haven't even attempted presents under the tree. It's like, yeah, they're not going to last if we did that. We'd have to like alarm, put an alarm on them or something. So it's crazy.
Well, and with that, you've got your weekly dose of Disney nostalgia.
Be sure to subscribe to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast wherever you listen to your other favorite podcast, and give us a look also on YouTube.
While you're there, please like or leave a 5-star review, maybe even both. That'd be great. And also share it with your best friend.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com. Yes, we have a website where you can see all of our nostalgic reviews of Disney movies.
Tune in next week as we take a big turn, Eddie. Big turn out of the package film area into another big hit. And we are going to do my favorite, my wife's favorite animated film, Cinderella.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. And remember, cheers to the new year and to the new Toad.